So here we are in our June monthly video, and behind me is Helsby Hill. I came here today with my drone to fly it, and then found this lot had competition, and they're flying model aircraft right over us here from a field on your right, and they're going very fast, and somehow they're managing to avoid collision between their own aircraft. But if I put my drone up, I'm pretty sure I probably couldn't avoid such a collision. Anyway, I'm here today for a very powerful reason. Join me later on to find out what that is. There's a hint in what I just said. But first of all, I'm going back on the radio. Not intentionally, but this was something that happened in a program that was broadcast on a community radio station last week, a station in West Kirby. And I'd gone up there, so I thought, to do a little feature on their little radio station for you to watch. But they thought I was coming to be a guest on their show. So who am I to argue? This is what happened.
I remember Brian Smart. He was very prolific as a radio presenter throughout the 80s, 70s, 80s with Radio City, Merseyside, Marcher, and I believe he has a story about Radio Tees as well.
The guy who does the country show, did the country show there, I think he may well still do it, called Stan Laundon, and he's got his own website, and I was on there having a look to see all the memories of the times in the 70s when I was there, and I just happened to notice that I'd died. And my obituary was on the website, so yes, I did have to contact him and say rumours of my death have been greatly exaggerated, and supplied him with some pictures and information that he added to his website.
Living proof, as they say.
Yeah. I'm
So,
definitely not a ghost.
yeah. So how have you been since your death? You're okay? You fine now?
Yes, I have a second coming, I think.
That's the sort of thing you'd only try once anyway, isn't it? So.
Yeah, that's true.
So you gave up completely the radio in 1986-ish, if I remember rightly?
Yeah, 87 was the last radio station I worked at full time. That was at
87?
Marcher Sound in Wrexham.
Okay, that's when I started with you. I was a DJ for Brian on his Mobile Discos network.
Yeah, and we ran some auditions which you attended, and I've never shown you the video from
No,
that.
you haven't actually.
But one day when I feel like embarrassing you, I will get that video out.
Well, I obviously did something right because I got the job.
You got the job, yeah.
Without a skateboard.
And people used to ask for you. I mean, I was running a business with 5 mobile discos, and they used to ask for Frank a lot. So,
Oh, well,
so
there
you were popular, my man.
I don't know who this Frank a lot is, but look where I am today, Wirral Wave.
Yes, I almost feel I should interview you to find out how you got here.
Well, there's no beginning to my talents, I say.
Yes, and it was actually you who pointed out one day some years ago that I'm a famous Wallacean.
Yes, you're in the book of
The book of Wallasey, and I didn't know.
The one by Noel somebody or other. I can't remember his name today.
I didn't know there was such a term as a Wallacean, but apparently so.
Yeah, famous people from Wallasey. Okay, I'll play your second choice of music, which I also chose for you.
Yeah, but you're choosing the right records for me there. Bon Jovi's great.
It is indeed, and he's living on a prayer.
Sorry we can't play you Bon Jovi, but it's copyright, and of course we don't have a license for that. What we can do is take you a little further down the Wirral to Puddington. This is one of the venues where my wife used to work as a holistic therapist before all the lockdown started and everything else, and she's only just getting back to work and mainly doing mobile stuff at the moment. But she did want me to see this cafe and to taste the delicious ice cream they sell here. Unfortunately, the machine had blown up just before we got there. Anyway, carrot cake and coffee is fine with me, and it was a little stop on the way to our next port of call. Behind me is St Michael's Church, Shottick on the Wirral, or just about on the Wirral, partly in Deeside, who knows. It's right on the edge of the English-Welsh border, as a lot of places around here are, and I've got all these different subjects that I cover in my monthly video. I wonder if you can guess which one this is about. I've come to Shottick for a reason, but it's not what you might think. First, let's look around this area very quickly at the church, and then I'll get to the point. So when you mention Shotwick to people locally, they immediately think of the church. It's got a lot of history. There's war graves here. There was a pirate's grave apparently till recently with a skull and crossbones on it, but that's been taken away. There's arrow marks on the entrance to the church where the archers used to practice and sharpen their arrows or whatever they did. I wasn't there at the time, obviously. And also there's somewhere, we haven't actually found it yet, metal rings where boats used to tie up, because the River Dee used to come a lot further inland than it does now. Now to the real reason that I'm in Shotwick this month. The little captions along the bottom of the screen, they explain what we're doing, and if we bring up the one that explains why I'm here, you'll see it says technology, and in particular renewable energy technology, because Shotwick has got one of the biggest solar farms I've ever seen in this area. I'll look up the facts and put them on the screen. There's also a sailing lake right by the solar farm, so it's got more to it than this church. Wirral Mill has been in operation since around 1625. The mill house itself dates back to the mid-18th century. Now they hold events here throughout the year, food fairs, treasure hunts, family fun weekends and traditional country fairs, and they do have tours of the mill, but unfortunately they didn't have the place open the day we called there, and so we haven't actually seen how they made the flour. The country park itself is set in over 240 acres. There's fishing lakes and various walks and a farm and so on. Well worth a visit. Try and find out when they're going to do the mill tours before you go. So from a steam-powered mill to a wind-powered filling station, one with a difference. This wind turbine is 225 kilowatts. It goes straight to an electrolyser. There's 200 kilograms of hydrogen storage on this site, and a hydrogen dispensing unit, which you can see in the pictures, and a 30 kilowatt fuel cell system capable of providing backup power generation for the buildings nearby. So all in all, very useful site. By the way, there's not many hydrogen vehicles on the road, and if you want one, you're probably going to have to pay 50 or 60,000 at least, and there's not many filling stations around the country unless you live within the M25. And next month I'll be looking at the different ways of powering vehicles that go out on the road, from the old ones to the new ones to the future ones. Let's go back in time to the Elsecar Heritage Centre. When I saw this advertised, I thought that it was going to be an actual building you went in, but it's a living history centre. It's the town centre of Elsecar near Barnsley, and it covers the industrial history of the area. There's lots of little shops doing their own thing. There's a Newcomen beam engine in here, which we didn't get to see. It's the only such engine still in its original location. The Heritage Railway isn't running, and the council are currently apparently deciding which bits of the rolling stock can be salvaged and what they can get running again. So if you're interested in getting involved with that, Elsecar Heritage Railway. So we went to Yorkshire a week ago and we saw a wind farm that was nowhere near as big as the one behind me now, but it was quite interesting because it was a proper farm in the real sense of the word, with a garden centre, the Windmill Garden Centre it was called. Obviously they worked hard on the titles, and the cafe, which unfortunately was shut, was called Tea by the Turbines. I thought it was fairly inspired. Nothing like that here. We're out in the middle of fields, and this is a wind farm that's not actually running. There's two reasons for that. There's not much wind, which is why these model aircraft are able to fly here, and also it's a warm day, over 20 degrees, and therefore nobody's at home using loads of electricity. So these turbines, as you probably know, don't operate until there's a demand for them. But that's the wind turbine situation at the Frodsham wind farm. So we're back on the road again, and we're in Doncaster. This is Doncaster Travelodge. This one's called Lakeside. You can see why. Problem with that is it's very bright out there and quite dark in here, so I'm going to move away from the light, stay away from the light, but I want you to, I'll have to bring this with me, to see how we managed to exist on the road as though we were just at home. This is our home router for the internet. It's a 4G router. It's what we use at home, it's what we use here. We'll move on to Barnsley later, and that's what we'll use there. This technology is only 4G, you can get 5G. We typically get 40 megabits download speed and 10 megabits going up. It means that all the videos I take while I'm away can be on the internet and in the cloud pretty soon. Certainly at the same speed we can do it from home. So that's our technology on the internet. So one of the things that my life is full of every day, every week is property, and it's one of the things that I don't give much time to in my videos. So I've got to start doing that, because I'm now living from the properties I invested in 10, 15 years ago. So we can have a look at some of those. In 2005 I was quite ill. I was in hospital for months, and sorry about this, these are midges if you can see them, but I'm going to swallow a few while I'm talking to you now, I think. The thing I did after the illness was get out in the world and go to places like this as soon as I could. Now I decided to get into investing in property so that it would give me an income that I didn't have to work for, and at the time I wasn't sure how well I was going to be to go out to work anyway. Obviously things turned out fine for me, but I went around the country to various places that were recommended by property clubs as being of interest for investment. And this is Doncaster, and this development on this lake wasn't here. It was one of the places that I came and looked at as this was the future. I didn't actually invest here, and there is building still going on some sides of the lake, so properties are still being built around here, but it's a fantastic leisure area, and so this was one of the first that I had a look at. There'll be more to come in future months when you make my property journey with me. In 2006 I was persuaded to have a look around Portsmouth and invest there. There were lots of apartments being built at the time, and the story was that the prices were 10% less than nearby Southampton, and there was a likelihood that these prices would then pick up. So we had a good look round. There were lots of places advertising apartments, quite expensive for someone coming from the north of England, but the property clubs that I was involved in, they had all the finance and solicitors and everything else sorted out, so basically just had to sign on the dotted line if we fancied one. So I chose a development that was away from the seafront and the Gunwharf Quays area, because that was too expensive, and my view was, who's going to pay those sort of prices to rent? So here's the West Point development, which was built on the old Milton campus of the university. It's out near Fratton Park, where the football club is, and it's opposite Milton Park, so it has a good view over the park area from the balcony of the flat. I chose one 3 floors up, and this is what you're looking at now. I used my video camera to do an inventory of everything in the flat. We were advised right from the beginning that an inventory had to contain every last plug and socket and light bulb, and if they were chrome rather than white, we had to say so. You'll notice that the finish on this apartment was very high, particularly for Barrett, I have to say, and this was the one I bought, and you'll have seen this more recently as I went back there earlier this year and installed a new tenant. Now it's interesting that in 2006 when I bought this flat, a tenant moved in, they loved it, they paid the rent right up until this year, and they've only just moved out. So it's been a very popular place to own property, and the rent is guaranteed. As the property investors say, this one will rent all day. Well, that's all I've got for you in my June SmartAbout. I'm going to play out with this video. It shows the young birds feeding on the bird feeders outside our bungalow. This bungalow is for sale, by the way. We have it on the market. The point of me shooting this was that I had 2 cameras which said they had the same spec, but one cost 3 times more than the other. So I put them both outside the bungalow and let them both film the same thing in the same light conditions, and there was a bit of a difference, but not a couple of £100 worth. Anyway, see you next month.